really sick. So with no carbohydrates, is that...
Do you need it at every meal though? Because aren't vegetables and salads and all that, they're carbs anyway as well?
Yeah, you do get carbohydrates and stuff, but they're not the primary source. Like you
don't have to have the quinoa and the kumara at lunch. You can have it just.
No, great point, because you can get carbohydrate out of your fruit. You can get carbohydrate out of your oats. You can get it out of your out of your carbohydrate section of your lunch and your dinner. So good point. So I tend to have my best sort of carbs or my favourite at my lunch and dinner, but you'll find them popping up like you said and all the other things. Yeah.
I think that's just a template to go by, isn't it?
Yeah.
To fall back on that.
Yeah.
But you can be
I tend to take the vegetable broth for lunch, which is like just lentils and barley. Would that have any carb element to it?
That sounds good, but I'd go back to your plate. You're a lentil expert, Erica. What are the carbs like in lentils? It's mainly protein, isn't it?
It's good protein, lots of fibers, which is really good to get rid of your bad fat. You need those fibers, and no, I think it's great.
So what I'd suggest, if you were just eating the broth, it doesn't sound like... Is what protein apart from the lentils? Is it the mini?
It's just lentils, barley and vegetables like carrots, celery.
The poached chicken.
I'd just be wondering about the amount I was getting in there. Just keep going back to that and thinking, and if not, we got guys here that will have something like that, but then have a carrot stick next to it, or have a chicken breast randomly to the side of it, just to make sure they're getting enough in. Yeah. So any other questions relating to that, guys? Because this probably is the most important bit. No? Okay, things to think about. This is time where we do open the floor and just 5 questions. I know I'm going to start with one that I got asked before because I think it's important. Sorry, what's your name? Kayla. Kayla, you asked me about dried fruit, and this links me to orange juices as well. Dried fruit. This is how I work out how much dried fruit I'm allowed. I asked myself if I could, how many, for example, let's use apricots. Andrew, how many dried apricots could you eat in a sitting, do you reckon?
8.
Me too. I could eat 12 dried apricots in a sitting, no worries. How many whole apricots could you eat in a sitting?
2.
Yeah, so I kind of go for that. So if I could eat 2 whole ones, I'll eat 2 dried ones, because it's still similar sugar. Yeah? Yes, Erica?
We still stand. I don't know if you talk about the website yet, but you know, like what parents give to the kids, a small sun-made dry resin things. Yeah. Just a small tiny one equals something like 9 or 10 pieces of full sugar, which is quite huge. So yeah, it might get your kids hyperactive.
It's outrageous. Dried fruit's outrageous like that.
It's a lot of breakfast cereals too. It's that hidden sugar in breakfast cereal. Oh, that's healthy. It's got fruit and nuts, but it's that dried fruit. It's
big time. The other one is fruit juices, man. Like, I go crazy. Like, I have to hold back when I take my son to his grandparents and they give him juice for nearly they think if you're going to have a drink, it has to either be fizzy or juice. And my son's just been brought up on water. That's all he knows. So he has some juice. He goes crazy. But the reason is have you ever squeezed a glass of orange juice freshly made? Like, do you know how many oranges it takes to make a glass of... I think I played around with it once when I was going through a nerdy nutrition phase and I tried squeezing it all out, and it was like 10 or something oranges to get like a part of a glass. And I thought, could I eat 10 oranges? There's no chance, but you're still getting the sugar out of the orange. So it's quite outrageous, really. I just think flag orange juice. I don't even debate it. I just think I don't eat it in my life. I'd rather eat an orange, eat it in its whole form. However, you've got to draw the line with kids every now and then. If they go to the grandparents and they want a glass, I'll let them have it. But when he comes home, it's water. I have a life. Love to live with Steve.
When he's a teenager, you've got no control anyway. So it's going to like, I'm going to have orange juice and lollies and ice cream because I was never allowed.
I know.
As a kid.
But right now he's got an awesome six-pack. Joking. I'm not that bad, guys. Okay.
Yes, you are.
Well, maybe a little bit. Oh, who else asked me an awesome question? Oh, we're talking about sweeting the small stuff, so we've discussed that before. Don't stress the little bit of feta cheese. Don't stress the little bit of olive oil here and there. Just focus on the main things. Dan, do you want to take one or two of these?
Are there any vegetarians here? Let's skip that. Anybody think eating healthy is too expensive?
It is getting that way, the way food prices are at the moment.
Okay, well, allow me to retort. Who goes down the veggie market on a weekend?
It's no different.
No, it
It
is.
is.
Yeah! Fight!
It's totally different.
Great.
Come on, get out of
Fantastic.
What can you do?
Ollie, I'll send Ollie.
Ollie's on the way to the market.
To market you go.
Vegetables, herbs, the fish guys down on the boats. You know, if you want to get a bargain, you can. I think it's more, often we think it's a bit expensive because we go for, oh, Mawson's is easy, I'll just go in there and buy everything. That's expensive, so you can spend a lot.
$600 a week.
There you go. And if you go organic and all that stuff, you can go to that side of the scale. And if you're happy to spend that money, fantastic. I think investing in your own personal health and food is a good place to spend your money.
It's the chicken and
You
the
know,
amount of chicken.
You're building.
We eat. You know, like 6-7 breasts a day. You know.
So with that ethical thing with
The food you're eating today is building the body you're going to have for the next year. All your cells are going to replace themselves, right? So if you're eating crap, you're going to look crap and feel crap. And that's just as simple as I can put it.
Yeah. Jim will appreciate this. If you had a fancy car, what petrol would you want to put in your fancy car? You want to put the best petrol in, right? You don't want to fill it with rubbish, right? Your body should be a fancy car. That's so deep. I nailed that.
Mine's an old worry.
Mine looks like
Anybody got
big
a...
dump big.
Oh, sorry.
If you go out somewhere for dinner and you try and find a healthy option that isn't covered in anything, quite often it's more expensive than the rest of the meals there. Or they just don't have healthy options. I mean,
Really?
I think if you go to most restaurants, they'd make you something. If you said, can the chef cook me this and
now
that?
we have to ask.
If I go to most restaurants, I can find a piece of meat with the seasoned vegetables. Like, I don't know many places that don't do it, like a fillet steak or a chicken or a piece of fish. And then you just ask for the seasonal vegetables, and maybe just don't. Oh, here the big one. If you're going to entree, go with the protein stuff, not the breads and stuff. That's a bad one. That's a bad one.
Just take a diversion if you go.
Take a hit. I'm taking this one for the team.
Or I always have a salad. I always ask them to put the sauce on the dressing on the side.
Yeah, exactly. So you can, if you're pre-prepared with, what they might serve you that you know is going to be troublesome, ask ahead of time. How does that come? How are you going to cook that? You can ask. I mean, it's your body, your money.
It's actually a veg garden.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
What was it?
And you can grow salad veg in a little bowl.
Can I add this into the expense mix here, guys? Once you actually buy into this and you cut all the fake food out of your diet, I reckon it looks expensive when you're half and half. When you're buying your real food and you're buying your fake food together, I think that's when it looks really expensive. But once you actually go, right, I'm just going to go in there and get my real vegetables, my real meats, my real whatevers, and you cut away all the little extras for your kids, Paula. Once you cut away all the little extras, that shopping trolley list will just drop right down. Sorry, Ollie, but the cream rice is gone.
Depends on what vegetables. If you're going to buy vegetables, it's going to be expensive. If you're
Good
going
point.
to go to the market and you're going to buy beetroot,
Yeah,
then
seasonal,
roast
right?
your beetroot and buy what's in season, then it's going to actually be.
I made enough for me, my son, my wife, for dinner and lunch the next day on about $25. I think that's pretty reasonable, right? And that was just going with whatever was in. So broccoli was like two heads of broccoli for.
Broccoli and chicken.
And that's
I
it.
spiced it up a little bit.
And a bit of cobra.
I present it beautifully in the dish.
Chicken has cinnamon on it.
That's good. Moving on, Dan. Next one.
Anybody got any questions on dairy?
Where does yogurt sit in the grand scheme of things?
That's a good question. Think about the number of ingredients in it. So if you want to have yogurt, think about your portion size, and something like an unsweetened natural would be better than a calcium chocolate flavour.
So you're better to go for the full fat yogurt, aren't you, rather than the low fat? Because I've looked on the thing.
Yep.
So one's got heaps of fat.
Yeah, what you
And
normally
not
notice
a lot of
is
sugar,
you do
and the
need-
other one's got lots of sugar and less fat. So that's that fat sugar thing again, isn't it?
It is. Somebody said to me, trim milk and regular milk, trim milk, because it's had the fat taken out, it's more sugary. And I looked, it's not actually, they've just taken the fat out. So that might be the case with yogurt. And I guess if you have the chance to have a natural yogurt that is completely identical, but one is lower fat, why would you not take it? But that doesn't have to be your decision maker, you know.
So you're better to go for the lower fat and the higher sugar, you're saying?
No,
'Cause
no,
the
no, that's not
organic-
what I said. No,
Oh.
I said if they look the same, if they've got
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
amount of sugar, and one has simply had the fat taken out, like a trim milk does.
Yeah.
I don't know how they magically reduce it, but I guess it can be, it's when they spin it round and the fat pops out. Then you could take the lower fat option, but not at the expense of your higher sugar.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it's
Yeah.
getting too, you can get bogged down in that stuff.
Yeah.
Go for what's natural,
Because
less
I've
ingredients.
turned, because I use the Cyclops organic yogurt, and I keep switching from the low fat to the high fat, because I go there and I think, am I better to do the low sugar
Read-
and the more
read
fat?
what's in there.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
they're
you'll
both the
know.
same, except one's got more fat and less sugar, and one's got less fat. One's got more fat, less sugar.
If everything else
one's
is
got more
identical, I'd
sugar,
take
less
fat over sugar.
Sugar's
If
the-
everything else is identical, fat over sugar. But you know what?
Oh, okay.
About high fat dairy products, guys, no matter, all dairy product has been touched, whether it's trim, even the fat stuff, unless you can go straight to the cow, it's something we've tampered with it. Okay, all dairy. So just think of it as eat less. We don't need it. If you're eating real food, you'll get things from your vegetables that your dairy food would provide. I would eat less of the dairy. Okay. In fact, I cut it down to just whatever I have in my mocha and whatever I have. That's pretty much it. I don't really have any more. But and I'm fine. I've had all the tests. I'm fine. So it's up to you. Okay. But yeah, unless you want to have a cow in your back garden, you're not going to get the ultimate source of milk.
So the fallacy of women having calcium for their bones is not real. That's
No, calcium is important, but we're saying you can get it from lots of other foods. It doesn't have to be from
nuts.
from calcium.
Fish with bones, vegetables, there's lots of calcium in that stuff. So, you know, for someone growing, you do need more dairy, but most of us aren't growing anymore. You know.
Which way we talking?
Good point, Sally. Good point.
Try not to grow it.
I'm trying not to, but
How does the homemade stuff compare to the bought stuff?
Homemade
Like I
yogurt.
make my yogurt, but how is that different to
I'm not sure how you make yogurt, but
like it's like a packet with water, but the difference is thinking is it's better because it only lasts for like a week versus like 6.
it's like that Easy Yo stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's in that packet? I would just go back and
Milk powder and a culture.
okay. So probably if you're going to have a yogurt,
But
that
it
would.
doesn't last as long, so in theory then it's got less cream.
I would
Probably,
think so.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably a best option.
But I'd still limit it anyway because it still doesn't stick to that one ingredient rule. It's just like I'm not going to sit there and eat cheese all day, but I'm not going to cut cheese out of my diet. I just won't sweat it. I'll just have a little bit. Yeah, it's probably the best way to think about it. Like I said, you get the majority of it right, guys. You're going forward. Okay. Okay, that's what we talk about. Don't sweat the small stuff. Here's the biggie, guys. If things aren't working after, say you get to the end of this week and you've stuck to this exactly, and you haven't felt, I'm not saying you're going to step on the scales and lost 5 kilos, but if you haven't felt something going on or know something's going on, you've done something wrong. Seriously, it doesn't take that long for real food to kick in. I'm not saying you're going to lose heaps straight away, but what I'm saying is something will happen. If you don't wake up in the morning going, oh yeah, you've done something wrong for sure. So don't wait 6 weeks down the line before you do something about it. Go back to your diaries. This is why writing it down is really good. That's why we provide our people with our clients with diets, our members of diet trackers. Basically, is you can go back to that week and go, well, you know how I debated with Steve about bread? Well, maybe he's right. Maybe that bread does need to go because I don't feel any better after a week, and that's the only bad thing I can find on my sheet. Yeah. And if you're really worried, I don't think I'm getting enough calcium because Steve told me to cut out my cheese. If you're really worried, get a blood test. Go and get tested. Find out how it really goes. And that's pretty awesome to do. You can find out what's your iron like if you're feeling low. Have I got enough red meat in there? It's cool. And that's the ultimate. Just don't let it go on. You hear so many people go to gyms and they spend a whole year there and they haven't changed. You should know after a week if you're doing something right. Not necessarily on the scales, but you should feel it straight away in your energy levels, and you know how your sleep patterns are going, how your body's starting to feel. You just know something's happening.
Your poo.
And your poo. Thanks, Dan.